My name is Emily. I am a 30-year-old hairstylist and have just opened my own beauty salon. I had set a goal to open my own shop by the age of 30. I worked hard to save money and managed to acquire an affordable turnkey property. Although I could have taken out a loan, I grew up with no father after he disappeared due to debts and my mother struggling to pay them off. Because of this, I was determined never to take on any debt. I never imagined I would be saddled with my husband's debt of $3,000 a month. I was deceived. I met my husband, John, at a group date a year ago. He was an easygoing and an active guy who was quite popular, and I remember being a bit proud when we started dating. Perhaps because he has two older sisters, John was good at being spoiled yet dependable, and many said we were a great match. Moreover, despite working for a large corporation, John was frugal and great at saving money. We often showed off our money-saving techniques to each other, discovered cheap restaurants, and felt our lifestyles were perfectly aligned. When he proposed, I immediately accepted. Since both of us wanted to save money, we only took wedding photos and registered our marriage without a ceremony. Furthermore, I was so busy preparing for my salon's opening that I didn't have time to look for a new place to live. When John suggested, "Why don't we live with my parents for now? It'll be tough when you first open your shop," I jumped at the offer. His parents' home was a two-story house, and they said the entire second floor would be ours. Although I had only met my father-in-law and mother-in-law once during a greeting, both seemed very nice, and I believed we could get along well. I even hoped that if we had a child, they might help look after our child. However, I was a bit concerned about my mother-in-law's overt affection for John. He was the youngest child, born after two daughters, and had secured a job at a good company, so she often boasted about him, saying, "John has always been smart and charming. I can't believe he's my son, it's too good to be true." My father-in-law, with his responsible demeanor, said, "I'm retiring this year, so I'm glad my son is settling down. I'm looking forward to enjoying my second chapter in life." And thus, our life living together began. But the first thing I wondered about was the rent and living expenses. "Hey, how much should we pay your parents?" Let me handle it. Can you give around $2,000 for now?" $2,000? Isn't that a bit much for living together? Well, my dad's retiring, and in exchange, my mom will do the chores, so $2,000 seems reasonable, right? Then let's split it. I'll pay $1,000 and you pay $1,000. Upon hearing this, John seemed a bit uneasy. "What's wrong? Actually, there's something I haven't told you. I have a debt." "What? I didn't know that. How much do you owe?" "Well, about." "Tell me now." I couldn't believe my husband had a debt. Being sensitive about debts, I pressured him for more information, and he finally confessed. "It's around $200,000. Upon hearing this staggering amount, I was dumbfounded and impulsively grabbed his collar. "I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you before our wedding, but I knew you despised debts and didn't want to break up because of that." Seeing him tear up, I let go, holding back my anger. I decided to calm down and assess the situation. "Why did you get into debt?" "I got hooked on horse racing for about a year and kept trying to recover my losses, but I've stopped now." John apologized profusely. I had believed he was as thrifty as me, but in reality, he just didn't have any money to spend. We had already registered our marriage, moved in with his parents, and updated our addresses. Thus, I had never considered the option of divorce at that point, so I racked my brain, trying hard to figure out how to handle the situation. "All right, I'll handle the debt repayment." John quickly looked up with tear-filled eyes, an expression of disbelief, but his eyes clearly conveyed his hope towards me. I hastily shook my head. "Don't get it wrong. I just hate debts and want to repay them quickly and get rid of them." Yet the hope in John's eyes towards me did not fade. If it remained this way, I would just be repaying his debt for him. I had to offer something in return for taking on his debt. "In return, you'll handle the rent and living expenses at your family's home. It's your own house, so you should be able to manage, right?" John nodded vigorously, looking at me with appreciative eyes. When I learned about the repayment amount, it was calculated that it would take more than 3 years to repay the debt entirely at a rate of $1,000 a month. Alright, let's repay the debt in 1 year. I made up my mind and planned to repay $3,000 a month. Considering having children, repaying the debt after 3 years would be too late. I had planned to hire a stylist for the beauty salon, but I thought I could save on labor costs by switching to hiring only an assistant. I might have a hectic schedule, but if I could leave the household chores to my mother-in-law, I believed I could focus on work. When I shared this plan, John nodded with sparkling eyes and began, "Actually, there's something else I haven't told you." What he started talking about was his job. He had indeed joined a major company, but quit right after due to disagreements with his boss. Now, he's under the care of a subcontractor company that favored him. Naturally, his salary was about half of what he earned at the previous company. He had kept this a secret from his friends and family out of embarrassment. Considering that he hid his debt and the fact that he had quit his job, I was shocked by how deceitful he had been. However, I thought it's pointless to bring it up now and reminded him, "Make sure you talk to your mother and ask for her cooperation." John nodded in agreement. And so, John and I divided our roles and started our new life. However, contrary to what John had told me, my mother-in-law would wake me up early in the morning, urging, "Emily, what about breakfast? You need to deal with the laundry too, or it won't dry itself." I almost blurted out, "Didn't you say you'd help with the chores?" But since I often came home late, I had left the evening chores and dinner to my mother-in-law. So I thought she probably wanted me to at least handle the mornings. Reluctantly, I started waking up early to prepare breakfast and do the laundry. I figured my mother-in-law, as a woman and a mother herself, probably didn't find it amusing that I wasn't doing any housework. Despite taking on John's debts and facing unexpected hard work, I was spending my days feeling frustrated. My beauty salon closed at 8 p.m., but the assistant left at 7 p.m., so I had to handle the cleaning and preparations for the next day alone, returning home by 10 p.m. When I got home, my mother-in-law, already out of the bath, would be watching TV and say, "Please do the dishes." There would be dishes for 3 people and pots left in the kitchen. I would heat up dinner in the microwave, eat alone, and clean up everything. Sometimes laundry was also left for me, so I had to fold it to prevent wrinkles. In the mornings, I woke up at 5 a.m. to finish laundry, prepare breakfast, and left the house by 8 a.m. Since I was running the business alone, I had to leave by that time to get everything ready. On my day off Tuesdays, I thought I could rest, but my mother-in-law would say, "You're off today, right? Prepare dinner and lunch for your father-in-law. You have it easy every day, and please clean up too." Then she'd dress up and go out. I prepared lunch for my father-in-law, who had retired and stayed at home, and spent the day cleaning. My father-in-law seemed to have taken up using the computer as a hobby, spending his days looking at stocks. After continuing this hectic routine for 6 months, my health began to deteriorate. Unable to bear it any longer, I asked John, "You did talk to your mother about helping with the housework, right? After all, I'm repaying your debt." Yes, of course, but my mom has been doing housework all her life, so she might want you to pamper her a bit. You could at least help out a bit around the house. You can wash the dishes, can't you?" "Well, I would like to, but Mom says men shouldn't be in the kitchen and dislikes it when I do." Faced with such a statement, I couldn't assert myself strongly. I began to wonder if living together was a mistake. If we weren't living together, I could leave the housework to John, and I wouldn't be chased around cleaning a spacious house on holidays. One Sunday evening, due to overwork, I finally fainted from severe anemia at the salon. Fortunately, there were no customers and no reservations, so I decided to go to the hospital and head home early. However, on the way home, I saw something shocking. It was John, looking frustrated and holding a horse racing newspaper, coming out of the station. When John noticed me, he hid the newspaper behind his back and greeted me with a surprised look. I was taken aback. "Didn't you say you quit betting on horse races?" Being unwell, I lost my temper and scolded him loudly. "No, this isn't what it looks like. I found this," John lied blatantly. I was so furious, wondering whose fault it was that I was in this situation, and didn't speak a word to John on the way home. Even after returning home, our strained atmosphere made John's mother suspicious, and she talked to me while John was in the bath. "Emily, your salon is struggling, it's understandable, but taking it out on John is not right." Excuse me, the salon is doing fine. Don't lie, I've heard about the debt you took on to start it. You're struggling to pay it back, aren't you? What? I've never taken out a loan. Actually, it's John who is in debt. Despite that, you believe I'm struggling to repay a loan I took to start the business. John should have informed his parents about his debt. John is also contributing. That's why we said we don't need rent, but you could at least help with the chores, right? Wait, he hasn't been paying rent. What are you playing at? Is every business person like this? No, you're mistaken. It's John who is in debt. It seemed there were misconceptions about John's debt while I was unaware. I told her everything about John's debt, how I was paying $3,000 monthly, what I heard from John about living with his parents, his current low-paying job, and his past at a major company. However, she didn't believe a word I said. It's not a lie. Just today, John was at the horse races. What are you saying, Emily? John was at his part-time job today, working hard to repay your debt. Doubting your husband, what kind of wife are you? She didn't listen to me at all and blindly believed everything her son said. You've been using all of John's salary for debt repayment, not even giving him any allowance. It's pitiful. I can't help him out much either. She wept, pitying her son's circumstances. It seemed John was not only not paying rent or living expenses, but also receiving an allowance from his mother. We've been talking about whether the marriage was a mistake. We didn't realize you were such a demonic daughter-in-law when we met you. I was about to say the same. However, it seemed anything I said would be considered a lie. When I was silent, John came out of the bath and asked lightly, "What happened?" I was so furious that I screamed. "How are you not ashamed of all the lies you tell?" His mother turned red and scolded me in front of John. "How dare you speak to my son like that? The big liar is you." John was bewildered, not understanding what had just occurred. "Ha, what? What happened?" he asked frantically and immediately hid behind his mother. I was furious and ashamed seeing him like that and shouted, "Just be clear. I have debts too, you know." At that, John stepped out and told me, "Let's talk upstairs. You're too agitated here." He then led me to the second floor. As we were ascending the stairs, the mother-in-law shouted at our backs, "Stop squandering my son's money. Get out of our house, you gold digger." Once we entered the room, John's first words were, "You're such a fool." As I was in disbelief, he continued nonchalantly, "If mom and dad say they don't need rent, then it's all good, right? More money for us to spend freely. You ruined my plans by being too honest. What about me and this situation? Well, your situation has more potential, you know? More persuasive. If you bear with it, thinking someday it will succeed, then there's value in investing money, isn't there?" I was astounded by John's cunning, but I no longer trusted him who only cared about his position. Moreover, despite claiming he had quit, he was still indulging in horse racing, showing no signs of remorse. This means there's a chance he might repeat the same mistakes. I couldn't see myself continuing our life together and said, "I want to break up." "John," he responded, "fine, but I won't be paying any compensation or settling the debt. You've been living here for free." Although I never expected to pay the debt of $3,000, I just didn't want anything more to do with such a person. So, I agreed. When we reported our divorce, the mother-in-law sighed with relief and muttered, "Now I can finally relax." On the moving day, while I was loading the truck with my belongings, I heard my mother-in-law's loud voice yell out, "You liar." Then John came rushing out of the entrance and pleaded towards me, "Emily, help me." She chased after him with fury. "If Emily leaves, the debt is gone, right? Why don't you at least pay the rent then? Why now? We didn't have to pay before, right? Your father lost all his retirement funds due to a failed investment. Now, we can only rely on you." I noticed my father-in-law looking apologetically through the living room window. I knew he browsed investment sites on his computer, but it seems he failed as an amateur investor. They both might be overly ambitious, but John was begging, "I can't. I still have debt, and my salary is too low. Please spare me." And then he clung to me, "Emily, please reconsider. Please don't leave." He even prostrated himself. I was dumbfounded. My mother-in-law slapped John's back, yelling, "Stupid child. I shouldn't have given birth to you." Where had the elite proud son disappeared? Father-in-law slowly came out of the house and gave me a deep bow. I apologize for the disturbance. I think I will sell this house. Please forgive my foolish family. Dad, seriously? Where will we live if you sell the house? He selfishly began to cry, and the mother-in-law collapsed in a fit of tears. They were pitiable, but after realizing how they had taken advantage of me, I felt relieved seeing their retribution. I hurriedly moved my belongings and left the scene. That was the last time I saw them. Rumor has it that they indeed sold the house and moved to a cheap apartment. The in-laws registered at a senior job center and started working part-time in their old age. John, monitored by his mother, couldn't go to his beloved horse races and was forced to take on odd jobs. Having worked continuously since our marriage, I believed it was only natural. Later on, my business at the beauty salon took off, and now it's thriving to the point where I can employ 2 stylists. I'm living fulfilling days. Recently, a hairstylist I met proposed going to Italy for training. I'm considering leaving the salon in the hands of the 2 stylists and taking up the offer. If I were still married, I wouldn't have this freedom. Every day, I find myself grateful for deciding to part ways back then. However, since the person accompanying me to Italy is a man, I have no idea how things might turn out.